Hello everybody, and welcome to Office Hours for the last week in March. Can't believe we're at the end of another month. This year is going too fast, too quickly. As some of you may know, on the sessions at the end of the month, we tend to pick a specific topic, and we usually do a little bit of show and tell as well as answering your questions. So you're still welcome to give us questions as you would in any Friday office hour, but bear in mind that today we're specifically going to focus on the use of formulas. So questions about formulas, please. I'm delighted to welcome our team of experts on this topic, and we really have got some experts this time, so it's great. And also a particular welcome for the first time to Emily. She was trying to join a session last year and ended up being evacuated due to an emergency in her building, so I'm very glad that she's here and with us this time. So just a quick reminder, none of us work for Salesforce.org. We're all volunteers. This is a entirely community-run effort, but we volunteer our time and talents to share our Salesforce knowledge with you because, well, there are things that we like talking about. And as usual, we've only got an hour. We won't be able to cover every aspect of such a big topic. So to try and limit things down, I asked each of the panel to think of maybe two of their favorite formulas and come prepared to talk about those. But also we're going to respond to your questions and see what the sort of burning issues are and what you'd like help with. So, as usual, please post your questions in the chat first, or if you just want to share your favorite formulas with us, post that in the chat too, and we'll pick up the questions as we go and ask you for some more details if necessary. Also be aware there are a lot of people on the call. We're at 29 now, and I'm sure we will have more joining. So if you're not speaking, please would you mute your microphone? As I say, when there's a lot of you on the call, some of you I know work in noisy offices and we get a bit of background noise. So it's very useful if people are muted, unless you're presenting or speaking about something. So I am trying to mute you too. There we go. Done. Okay, that's probably enough introduction for me, except just to say in terms of, it's interesting, the suggestions that have come in to me so far about formulas that we're going to talk about seem to sort of split into the things that are useful to use in reporting. That's where a lot of you use formulas, and then formulas that you might use in some way to kind of validate data. If you joined a little early, you'll have heard Steve and I just sort of talking about that. So I think we're going to probably dive into formulas that you can use in reports first. And I'm not sure where we'll start, but we do have a question we can go with. Emily, I think your suggestions are a little more advanced, so I'm wondering if we might save that for a minute on your PriorGroupVal and prior values.
Sure.
A really useful customer summary formula. I wonder if perhaps we could pitch it somewhere. Who's got something that I mean, any of the three of you, when you're building reports, have you got formulae that you would kind of always fall back on that really make report building easier?
Yeah, I mean, I often, creating formulas just for general summaries. Obviously, you can summarize the column if it's a number of some kind anyway, just, by clicking off the sum on the column itself. And so, I end up using some of these more complex ones that I'll show a little later if I need to do something beyond a basic summary. But I'd be happy to, show some of the other formulas as well if there's any questions on some of the other report formulas.
There's one I'd quite like to highlight, and Steve, we will come to the power of one in a minute, but actually I'm going to call out on Nick because there's a formula that I learnt from you, Nick, and I don't know whether you've got a copy of it around, which is the one about the gift, whether the gift has happened by this date in the year. And do you remember that one? It's the formula that
Yeah,
you put on an
the gift year to
opportunity.
date,
Yeah.
the gift year to date field.
Um, there's that, and there's also the one is it by this date in the year? You know, where you calculate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know whether you've got a copy of that around, but I have to say I've used that one with a lot of clients, and it's really.
Yeah, I feel like I need to actually credit Steve Molis for that field. I think I copied one of his formulas and kind of
Ah.
hacked it for my own purposes. Let me see if I can track that one down for us.
Yes, yeah, and so what this formula is doing is it's calculating whether kind of which, yeah, it's a sort of you put it on an opportunity, don't you? And the idea is if you're trying to do comparative reports and you're trying to see sort of how you're going in this current year versus last year, the formula can tell you whether by this date in this last year or the previous year you'd actually received the gift. And
Yeah.
we all Steve. Steve, you see in the chat, everybody's saying you all Steve. We all Steve for Steve Mo. Well, Nick, that looks that up then. I mean, I know,
Yeah.
Steve, you are the champion of something called the power of one, and its greatest advocate. So maybe we just start with the power of one. Can you tell us about that and why everybody should know how to use it?
Yeah. So, and I can't take credit for the power of one. I learned it at my first Dreamforce in Dreamforce 09. Actually, I could like do a walkthrough of it, if that's okay.
Should we have a walkthrough, everybody? Let's have Steve show us. Okay, and I'm going to, yeah, we're getting some +1s, Steve, and then so I've shifted to make you the presenter. Hopefully you'll have got a little check, and then Nick said he's found his formula too. So we'll learn about the power of one, and then we'll do that date formula. So that's great.
Okay.
There we go.
So let me. So can everybody see what's on the screen? The hub office hours slide.
Yep, we see it.
Okay. So it is a formula field, and if anyone is never written a formula before or considers himself a formula novice, this is the formula editor. And it's got all these buttons on it, and I strongly recommend using them whenever you build a formula. I mean, I've written over 1,000 formulas, and I use these buttons all the time. I'm a horrible typist, and I don't remember the syntax of every function off the top of my head. Just quickly want to walk through a few of them. The Advanced Formula tab, I strongly recommend that you use it whenever you're writing any formula. It will give you access to all the functions and cross-object references that are available. The Insert Field button is really important because when you write a formula, no matter what it is, a validation rule, a workflow rule, a formula field, anything, you need to use what's known as the API field name. And that's not necessarily the same thing that you see when you're looking at a record and you're looking at a field. So a perfect example of that is the stage on an opportunity or donation. The API field name is not stage. It's actually stage name with a capital S and a capital N, and that's what you need to use in a formula or your formula will not work. There's insert operator. It has all the operators that you can use in a formula right there. And most importantly, the insert function button. So this is just an incredible feature in the formula editor. When you select a function from that pick list, it also has a link to the online help and training for that function and a syntactically correct representation of what that function does and how it's used. So I strongly recommend using them. But I really want to show you, what I consider to be the greatest formula ever written, and it wasn't written by me. It was written by a guy named Tom Tobin, who used to be an analytics product manager for Salesforce. And I was at my first Dreamforce back in 2009, at a hands-on workshop, and he showed this formula, and my jaw hit the floor. I was blown away. And I think actually someone captured the moment where I learned the power of one from Tom. And so I'm going to quickly walk through the formula. So this is a formula field. So you'll be creating this not in the report, even though its use is within reports. The formula itself is a formula field that you're going to create on the object, and I would recommend you create this on every single object in your org. Create it on the user object, the account, the contact, the opportunity, donation, custom objects, activities, anything. If I create a custom object, this is the first new field that I add to that object when I create it. So you're going to select formula as the data type, and you're going to select number as the result type with 0 decimals. And I strongly recommend that you do not name the field power of one. I've seen people who have used the power of one, and then they'll send me a question, and they'll say, like, I'm trying to do this math using the power of one in my report, and I can't quite get it to work, and they'll show me a screenshot of their formula, and they have named all of their power of one fields power of one. And so I have no idea whether they're trying to count the number of accounts, count the number of donations, count the number of donors, count the number of households, because they're all called power of one. So as a best practice, I would recommend that you name the power of one after the object that you are creating the field on, because that's going to be the thing that you're counting. So here's the formula. That's it. You create a new field, you select formula as the data type, you select number as the result type, you open the formula editor, and you just type in the number 1, and you hit save. That's all you do. And you're probably thinking, like, okay, so what's the big deal? Like, I create this new formula field on the contact record, the household record, the donor record, the donation record, whatever object it is. And I go and I look at one of those records, and I look at my power of one field, and all I see is a 1. What is so awesome about this power of one thing? Here's what's so awesome about it. Here is a plain vanilla opportunities with products report. Could be any report, could be donations, could be households, could be cases, could be activities. And I'm using the standard report record count. And I can see that this report contains 866 records. Well, that's great, but 866 of what? Opportunity owners, households that have an opportunity, opportunities or donations or activities or whatever. The only way that I could tell for sure would be to take my phone off the hook, cancel all my meetings for the rest of the day, click the show details button, and count those row by row, keeping count and hoping that I don't lose count or die of carpal tunnel syndrome before I get to the end. But here is the exact same report using the power of one. The second I hit save on my power of one field, any standard report type that references those objects has those power of one fields available. So I just go to my fields and I find my power of one account field, and I grab it and I drag it into my report and I click summarize and sum. And I do the same thing for my power of one field on the user record, and my power of one field on the opportunity record, and my power of one field on the opportunity product field, product object. And I drag them into my report and I select summarize sum. And this is the exact same report that we were looking at before. But now using the power of one, I can tell instantly that there are 6 users who have an opportunity within the time frame of this report. I can tell that there are 70 accounts or households that have an opportunity within the time frame of this report. I can tell that there are 715 opportunities within the time frame of this report. And I can get the distinct count of opportunities per user, per household. And I can get the sum of line items per user, per account, all using the power of one. It is, and that is why it is the most incredible formula ever written. But don't take my word for it.
Well, you're always getting, and it's great. Yes, you're getting so far a comment. Yes, somebody who said it is magic indeed, Steve. So yeah.
I mean, it really, it's funny. It's a formula field that has absolutely no value whatsoever when you are looking at that singular account record or singular contact record. Of course, there's going to be a 1. You're looking at one contact. You're looking at one donation. But when you're looking at a report, and that report has households and donors and donations or activities or cases, that's where the value really comes in. And again, I cannot take credit for it. I learned it from Tom Tobin, and I say that I'm just his apostle spreading the gospel.
That's a great way to put it. Fantastic. So yeah, and I think you can. Yes. Where's Roger is saying, I've used this so many times in Excel formulae, but I've never created it in Salesforce, and have hand counted a lot of crappy reports. There you are. He's been doing like you suggested, Steve, and he's been putting the phone off the hook and counting it. And Meredith says, thank you for a great presentation of it. I'm sold. And Tina says she can't wait to try it out as well. Yeah, that's brilliant. And actually you could use that in a custom summary formula as well, couldn't you, Steve? And you actually show it row by row. I mean, I
use it in custom summary formulas all the time, because if you use row count, like rows of what?
Yes.
But when you use the power of one, now when I do a custom summary formula, I can say, all right, what do I want to do this math with? Oh, I want to divide the distinct count of opportunities by the distinct count of accounts, or the distinct count of opportunities by stage. Using the power of one, when I open up that summary formula editor in the report, I can see what that thing is that I'm counting. I can go, it is now a distinct option in that menu, the sum of opportunities or the average of opportunities. It is its own, it's no longer just this arbitrarily thing called row count.
Yeah, absolutely. Emily, since I've just been mentioning custom summary formulas, and you said that was one of the things that you were really keen on, are you ready to share your screen? Could you just show people what I'm talking about and what I mean?
Yeah. So I need to click here to become a presenter.
Fine. There we go. I've sent a request to you, I think. And yes, Nick, we will get to your other formula, but it sort of feels like we were heading into where Emily was going to be. And Edith, yes, I am recording this, Edith, and we will post when all being well, if the recording works and my editing's skills are up to this weekend, I will post it into the Hub Office Hours group, chatter group, in the Power of Us Hub, which is probably where you found out about this. Thank you for that other link, Jay. There is that we do have a Hub Office Hours playlist, and that's the best place to go to find all of this stuff. So yeah. So Steve showed us the formula builder, which is great for putting formulas on objects. You can put formulas into reports as well, can't you? And Emily, I know you wanted to show that and some formulas you use specifically in reports.
Absolutely. So are you guys seeing my just NPSP report screen now?
We are, with the nice little stripes above at the top.
Okay. Yes, I like to keep my my work computer also looking a little fun, add some fun to my day. I was thinking when Caroline mentioned, two favorite formulas here. I've been really focused recently on wave analytics and Einstein discovery as I've been, learning more about that. And I know a lot of people are really excited about this new set of tools. If anyone's not familiar with them, they're, tools that you can create visuals of, much bigger data sets, and you can even do some predictive analytics. And there's some really cool stuff there. But I really wanted to think about some formulas that could be leveraged more often in sort of the standard Salesforce reporting functionalities that I think, at least with many of my clients, I haven't seen people using them very often. And I think they're something really cool that you can use without having to, get access to some new big tool. So I'm going to show these two, ParentGroupVal and PriorGroupVal today. And in doing so, you can also see how you can create a formula within a report builder. So obviously, Steve just shared how you create the formula field directly on the object, and you're just walking through that screen to create the formula field. This is how you actually create a formula within a report itself. So I'm going to start here with the ParentGroupVal. This is just one of my developer orgs, and I've been watching a lot of Game of Thrones lately, so that's my current test data scenario that I'm working with. So if we're looking at this summary report, what you're seeing here is, a bunch of donations summarized by which household they came from, summarized by stage, and of course I just have on here some, basic data, the amounts and the close dates. And what the ParentGroupVal, this is actually a formula that's built within the report. What that's doing is showing me the percentage of each individual summary level, so this is the household summary level, their percentage of donations against the entire block of donations. So in this case, we can see that the Baratheon household gave $4,480, which is 11% of the total amount of donations here, which is $118,000. And you can use this particular formula, the ParentGroupVal, to compare any value of sort of a summary level against the total value of the grouping to which it belongs. So if I go actually in here and edit my report, I can show you what that specific formula looks like. So if you've never created a formula within a report before, you can add a new formula with this add formula here, and this will appear once your report is either a summary or matrix format. So you won't see it there in a tabular report. So once you have this, then I can go in here and actually edit my formula. So, the top of what you're doing when you're creating a new formula, you're essentially naming that column. That's fairly easy. You can pick the format that you want to display, number, percent, or currency. In my case, I'm using a percent. And then this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. You need to think about what level you want this to calculate at. So in my case, I've selected that I wanted to calculate at the account name. So at each household level, how many, what is the percent of donations against the whole? And then down here is your actual formula builder. And I like what Steve was saying about, don't be afraid of the buttons. Don't be afraid to actually click things and put them in. There's an insert function again. So if I actually scroll down here to the ParentGroupVal and collect and do insert, it puts in this, formula structure there for me, so I can more easily figure out what I need my formula to look like. So let's look at each piece here of the ParentGroupVal. So essentially, for this function, what I'm looking at is at my summary level, what is the total amount of all of the donations at that level compared to the total amount of all of the donations at the grouping level. And in this case, it's my broader level of stage. Or I could do grand summary, which would be the highest level total. But just so we can see here, if we add a new formula, this is how you can add some other custom summary formulas into your report. There are a lot of other ones here. Many of these formulas are probably similar to what you've seen if you've worked with formula fields in general. All right, so let me go over. I'll show.
And sorry, some and count are useful ones of those, aren't they? In those,
Oh,
you're
yeah,
just showing that other list. I mean, sum is something you can use all the time, and that would be a good one for the for where you could use power of one, wouldn't it, Steve? Because you could just do sum your power of one fields. Yeah.
All right, so I will show my other report here so we can look at the PriorGroupVal. So this one, in terms of creating this formula in the report itself, it feels pretty similar. The key difference here is that rather than comparing your individual value to that whole, to the group in which it belongs, you're comparing it to the previous peer grouping. So in this case, the example I chose is donations, and they're sorted by close date, and I have the close date, by month. And it's comparing the total amount of donations from month to month. So from December 2016 to January 2017, $880 less were given to my organization. And then, I lost a few months there, so we'll go here to this example. But from April 2017 to May 2017, I had another drop, 24,000, increase from January to April. And then from April to May, a $23,000 increase or decrease, excuse me. So you could actually look at the subtotals one by one for each month, because we have that summary here. So I can see that my subtotal in May is $1,585, and I can see that my subtotal in April is $25,000, and I could do the math by hand to figure out that difference. But what this formula is doing is for each of those summary levels, actually calculating that difference for you. So, when you're looking at something over kind of that broad view, and I especially like this in this sort of by close date format, you can really quickly and easily figure out what parts of your year are you having increases, what parts of your year are having decreases. But you could summarize by other values as well. So let's jump into that formula. Okay. So again, if I go here, I can select my formula and insert it, and it will give me the pieces that I need to create my formula. So I've chosen the amount sum once again is what I'm summarizing. And then I chose my grouping level as the close date. So that's what I summarized my report by, is close date. The difference here in terms of making this formula versus making the parent group val is that I subtracted that amount from the sum of the amount for each group. So that's how it's getting that difference from level to level. So since I'm looking at my Salesforce screen and not the GoToMeeting screen, I don't know if there was any questions about these, but I'd be happy to take them, or I turn it over to Nick for some of his formulas.
There was a, well, part of the reason why I interrupted you, Emily, sorry, was because there was a question from Sarah Gill, just saying, could you list some additional use cases for when you use the custom summary formulas? So that was why I just got you to pause on sum and count. Thank you. It's interesting. PriorGroupVal and ParentGroupVal, they get talked about a lot. And again, they're one of those things that actually, it really helps if somebody has a really nice, clear explanation of them with a use case. So I think that was great. Thank you. I bet there's lots of people now thinking of ways that they could use them. Does anyone have any specific questions for Emily about this, or shall we, or any custom summary formulae? Sarah, did that sort of help? Do you want to dwell a little more on custom summary formulas, or should we have a look at what Nick has to show us? Anybody? Oh, Meredith's just saying, could she have another look just at the parent group value or the formula for it?
Absolutely. The formula itself, not the output. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think just talk us through that again. Just what are you? It's that division thing, isn't it? Is in the
so that's really your difference here between the parent and the pre. Essentially, the division sign versus the minus sign. In either case, you want to think about at the broader level, at the level you're comparing to, you're picking what is the actual value that I'm comparing to, and then what is the level itself. So in this case, I'm comparing to the grander level of my stage, which is my higher level grouping variable, and the value that I'm comparing is the sum of all of the opportunity amounts. So this is just that standard opportunity amount field, and I just calculated the sum of it. And then for the parent, you want to specify, because you're comparing that sum of the whole. And this, I think the percent is kind of the easiest way to think about it, because that's how you would make a percent, if you were doing it in your own head. You need to figure out that value, and then you're dividing it rather than subtracting it out. One other, nice little helpful thing here that Salesforce does for you when you're actually creating these fields, if I want to put amount sum into my formula builder here, and I go to summary fields, it's going to show me all of the fields for my particular report type. So this is an opportunity report type, so that's why we're seeing opportunity fields. And if I click amount and sum, because that's what I want my value to compare here for me, it already populates that in there for me. So, just like Steve was saying with the general formula builder, you can click around. You don't actually have to type this out. What's important to remember is for the parent group val, you're going to do this division to get that, just the comparison of that value against that broader grouping level. Whereas the minus sign in the pre-group val is going to compare you to that previous peer grouping. So
cool.
Just to give you the, so that's what it'll look like when it's done.
That's great. Thank you. I hope that helped, Meredith. Yeah, brilliant. Okay. So I referenced it earlier. I mean, I think, so these custom summary formulae and particularly being able to do that sort of grouping that you were doing, Emily, is great. But you're just working there with kind of dates that exist on, the close date and groupings within reports. So yeah, so Nick, yes, I always find that there's that you can go only so far with that, and then there are these interesting things that you want to do where you want to kind of group dates in slightly different ways, and there are these clever tricks that you can do on opportunity, and if you've got your formula now and you could just talk us through that one a little bit, would be great. Oh, Nick has gone on to Nick, you're muted by the looks of things. Still have you there? All right, I've sent Nick a link, but Nick, you still seem to be muted. I can hear you now.
Aha, there we go. I've had to figure out which mute button I was on there for a second.
Okay.
But no, it's a perfect flow in terms of where we're coming from here, because I think with what Emily was just showing there, with the formula field that I want to show here today, will put a little cherry on the top to what she was doing, and allow it to do basically more filtering of those different reports there.
I made you the presenter, Nick, but we didn't. Oh. We've lost you, Nick. No, you're there as well. Let me try. Okay.
Hi, I'm dialing back in here on a different phone.
Yeah. So I found your name again and made you the presenter. So I hope hopefully you're presenter on one or other of these. One of your things seems to gone offline.
Yep, it's here.
Yay.
Can you see what I got? Perfect.
Yes.
Awesome. So the use case that I have here would be a situation where we have wanting to run year-over-year reports. And the interesting thing with Salesforce reports are that with date filters, I can select the current and previous year or current and previous 2 years. But where it falls apart would be if I wanted to look at year to date. And so maybe I want to look at only donations that have been made to today's date of March 30th. Or maybe for our fiscal year, things along those lines. And so this is I credited Steve Mo earlier. This is a Steve Mo formula that I found on the Trailblazer community that I've copied over for this use case. And so I'll post this in the comments here after I get done presenting. And basically what I did was I just copied and pasted this into the opportunity object, and it references the close date. So there's really no work that needs to be done here to get this year-to-date formula. The one thing I'll mention would be that if you're using this year-to-date formula for something like a fiscal year, so comparing fiscal years, there is a little bit of work that needs to be done, and you'll notice anything that is 01, 01, I think it's listed 3 times here, it would need to be converted over to the first day of your fiscal year. So July 1st, 01, or 07, 01, say September 09, 01, whatever that ends up being, that would be really the one modification that would need to be done. But what this allows us to do is that this checks a box on that opportunity record. So when I'm over on the report builder side, I now have this year-to-date formula that I can add in to a filter. And I can still do that current and previous year as my range. But what this does is it narrows down the opportunities that would be listed there. So now I can do a true year-to-year comparison of how am I tracking to today's point in time. So I can be tracking that in terms of here are my two graphs and how am I looking in terms of progress. If I wanted to do year-over-year comparisons, I could do that as well with the GroupVal formulas that Emily was showing earlier. So it's kind of like it's called a little cherry on the top to what we've just been talking about.
All right, you've just blown Maria's mind, actually. The comment so far is, whoa, this is great. So that's a good one. I wonder whether this takes us back. We got a question right at the beginning from Terry about sort of customizing the library, looking at this kind of rolling thing. I wonder, Terry, if this gets a bit closer to what you were wondering about, is whether you could use this to look at how you've done in the last 12 months, back from today. She says yes. Okay. That's great.
Awesome.
Nick, go ahead, please.
One thing that, and this isn't even a formula field, this is a field that's built right into Salesforce on the opportunity or donation object, and it's built right into the report, is the option to group a date field and like donation date or close date. And so like actually in Nick's screenshot, he's got like, the little drop down menu. Yeah, you can strip out the year component of the date field. And so it allows you, when you're doing that year by year comparison, if you wanted to compare month by month, the current year versus the previous year or the year before that, using group dates by, I think it's a little bit below where the pop-up for GoToMeeting is. It says calendar month within the year. That removes the year. So like the way the reports group now, it would say like, January 2017. The months would be grouped within each year, and so you wouldn't be able to see like January of this year right next to January from the year before. When you do calendar month in the year, now all of a sudden you can group it by month within the year, and then add another grouping of this year versus the previous year, and you get to see those months side by side, February against February, March against March, April against April.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. I think that's well worth calling out, and is a fascinating thing. I know that I have clients who love Nick's formula because what they want to do is they want to say, okay, we are on, we're on March the 30th, and we're running a particular appeal. How were we doing at this time last year? Because we had another appeal that was going, and they want to kind of see exactly where they were on March the 30th, 2017 versus March the 30th, 2018.
I've actually got.
Go ahead.
If we have time, I actually have a variant, a custom summary formula within a report that actually does something pretty cool. It came from a question somebody posted in the answer community where they were trying to compare, this year against the previous year or this quarter against the previous quarter, and then actually show the variance. Were they actually, was the difference between the two periods positive or negative, and isolate what that difference was. So if your donations for the current month are $100,000 more than the previous month, they wanted to isolate, show that $100,000 difference within the report, and also be able to show it as a percentage. What percent above the previous month are we, or below the previous month? And I did that using a couple of custom summary formulas that I could share.
I think you've just sold us, Steve.
Okay.
And Nick will come back and try and rejoin you in a few minutes. But yes,
okay.
Go for it, Steve.
Okay, so let me. So can everybody see the report? It's called Opportunity Variance by Year 1B.
Yep, I can see it. Yep.
Okay. So this is the formula that I wrote, the report that I built, and so give you just a basic rundown. So this is my opportunity power of 1 and the standard dollar amount. It could be donation amount. This is my dev org, so I have multi-currency enabled. So that's why you're seeing all these USDs. So this is the count of opportunities by year, and this could very well be by quarter, by month, by week, whatever it is. And this is the opportunity amount by year. And these are the formulas I built. So here I'm displaying the variance between this column and the previous column. So you can see here in 2016, we had 5, let's just call them donations. But in 2017, we only had 1. So we had a drop of 4. And our donations for 2016 were 1.3 million, but in 2017, it was only 65,000. That was a drop of $1.3 million and a 95.3% drop. But then the next year, we had a bounce back. We had 2 more donations. So the way I did this, the way I captured this variance, the variance in the count, the variance in the dollar amount, the variance in the count shown as a percent, and the variance in the dollar amount shown as a percent, was with a series of custom summary formula fields. And as Emily showed, she was using a function called ParentGroupVal, which is an incredibly powerful custom summary function. There's a companion one called PriorGroupVal. And so what PriorGroupVal is doing, it's going out to the previous column, one column back from the one that you're in, and fetching, in this case, my power of 1 opportunity count. So I'm getting the opportunity count from the column that I'm in, and then going out 1 column over to the left into the previous year and getting that number, and then I'm subtracting them and displaying the remainder. And then to get it as a percent, I'm performing the same math, but then I'm dividing that result by the number from the previous group. Now, here's the thing that comes up quite often with report summary formulas, really any formula where you're doing division. You don't oftentimes know if the value in your field or your formula that's going to be your divisor, if that field actually has a value in it, and when it doesn't, or if it has a value but that value is 0, you cannot, by the laws of mathematics, divide by 0. So what happens in Salesforce is the formula will return the text $error in the result. And it's not that your formula is wrong, it's just that the values that your formula is calling in, they violate the laws of mathematics. So to prevent that $error from showing up, the first thing I do is I add an exit where I evaluate what will ultimately be my divisor, and I check to see if it's a 0. If it's not equal to 0, then I continue on and do my math. If it is 0, then I just return null. So that if I run my report, you can see that my divisor in all of these columns, they are 0. And if I didn't do that exit, I would actually just see $error, which is not an invalid result, but it's not what your users want to see. So here I'm basically saying, if there is no math to do, if there are no numbers to work with, then don't show me anything. Only perform the math if there are numbers there to do the math with. So here in these other formulas, I'm really just borrowing the same math that I did here, and rather than using my opportunity power of 1 field, I'm applying the exact same logic, but using the insert summary field function. I'm just going, and as Emily showed, I'm just going up here, and I'm grabbing the amount and the sum. I'm not typing this out by hand. I've seen so many people that have problems with a formula, and they typed it out by hand. And in often cases, what they've done is they've entered in a field name, and that field name does exist on that object, but it's not a summary field. It's not a field that can be counted, like a number or a dollar amount or a checkbox field that is either checked or unchecked, because and it really is a 0 or a 1. If the field is not in this list, you cannot use it here in your math. So I always use the summary field menu as Emily showed. And another tip when you're building a report summary formula, when you use a function like PriorGroupVal, you always want to tell it what grouping to use. So again, rather than typing this by hand, I selected use the close date grouping amount as my math. So this is, and the nice thing is, like, these numbers, you can pull them in and display them in a report chart. You can see, like, year by year what is our donation revenue up or down, and the groupings don't have to be by year. They could be by month, by week, by fiscal period. So I just wanted to share that because some people were asking about doing some comparisons, like this year versus last year or the previous year, things like that.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Steve. And I also just posted a link in the chat to a blog post from Judy Sohn, who's doing some comparative reports as well. And I'll post another resource that everyone likes. Great. So as usual, we could talk about reports forever and ever and ever. But I know that Nick, you had another favorite, and I've kind of sidetracked slightly because I asked you to do this, the formula field instead. But there was something that you wanted to show us, which I think takes us in a slightly different direction. So
yeah. One of the things that I think I first dabbled in learning how to do filters via reports, and with the advent of Lightning, I've started to do a lot more of writing formula fields to allow for different abilities within Lightning. Lightning has some new abilities and sometimes limitations that make showing data better and easier. And so I'm just going to show you an example here for the concept of the header bar that is new to Lightning. And you'll notice here you can, with how that works, is you can select fields. But in some situations, maybe you want to add more information than the 10 fields that you allow. And maybe you could do in some sort of a stack. I created a simple formula field that merged actually 4 different fields together into one field for this header bar that in turn allowed us to get more information on the page. And I'll just quick show you this formula here. It's very easy formula, and really it's just those 4 fields and the nifty break, line break functionality. And so I'm just saying field 1, break it to go to the next row, row 2, break it, go to the next row. And this is coming really handy, not just for the header panel, but if you've ever been playing with Lightning with list views and adding, or excuse me, related lists. In Lightning, you'll notice the limitation when you have a related list that isn't a quick link. You can only have 4 columns. And so sometimes you want to have more data than 4 fields. And so this allows you to scrunch data into one nifty formula you can add in that way. The other field I want to quick show, it's another kind of UI type of field, but another field I've been really dabbling with is with tools like Conga and things along those lines. I've learned the hard way too many times that the if function in Word is nice, but it becomes a pain, and trying to figure out how to build an if function in Word becomes really difficult. So Conga creating mail merge documents, and you can do kind of some conditional logic over there. But what I've been starting to do is actually creating formula fields within Salesforce to then do all that logic as I'm more comfortable with Salesforce formula fields. And so I just want to pull up, by no means is this a formula field that has any bearing to you all or make any sense. I won't post this in the comments, but I have a situation where I have actually a nested if statement and I wanted to display different text within a Conga document and have not only different text that are different fields, but even different text and even some formatting that's going on in here with what's dynamically showing up. And so there's some kind of mad logic that's happening here that in turn, when I go over here, it makes it nice and easy to look at. So one of the things I'll kind of call out here is that there's certain fields like this that are showing up or not showing up based on those fields that I'm creating. Or maybe in other situations, I'm formatting the data in a certain way to show it out, very similar to how that header panel works. And so using Salesforce as a guiding point to share this information has become really a game changer for me to kind of take the formulas with, okay, how do I do something else besides a formula for reports, and how can I make something look visually interesting?
Oh, as somebody who spent kind of several weeks for somebody struggling with conditional fields in Word, this is brilliant, Nick. This is really great. Would you mind just going back to your first concatenate formula and just scrolling up a little bit? You've got that sort of GoToMeeting banner, which is just hiding
hiding all of it. Yes. There we go.
So if you could move the GoToMeeting banner, hope that helps, Carol. And so you can just kind of see. And this is the concatenate here is done by that ampersand, isn't it? And as you say, you've got that fancy the BR with the double parenthesis. That's what's creating your line breaks, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And so what I've learned is that something like a break, you can use a Salesforce functionality. In the last week or two, this is kind of new stuff to me as well. I'm learning that you can do HTML into formula fields as well. Sometimes it doesn't work out perfectly on the visual side, but you could do, if you know HTML, you could do the line break HTML into a formula field as well. Even and both on that, things like bolding italicizing, font size, colors, things along those lines can be really game changing with visuals. Like a nice warnings field that could show up with big, bold, red letters if there's a warning that you want to notify on.
Do you just have to know the HTML and add it in? Is there anything that prompts you for that, or?
Yeah, so this is the other formula I was showing has some of that HTML. This is one I don't know most of the logic behind. I think I just copied something and it worked for me. What I've noticed is that in order to do the HTML, you need to do quotes around your HTML. So, for bolding to show to do the bold and then the end of the bold, those are really the main things that I've noticed that have needing to be done in order to make HTML work. I'm kind of an accidental coder, and how I describe it is I like to use Google, and I think there's an HTML school. I think it's like W3 Schools. If I'm wondering, I'm just saying, how do I bold HTML? And it'll tell me the syntax to do so.
And Stuart has just, he's a sort of question come comment. Can you put notes in a formula field, comments or notes, just like developers would?
Yes. That was one of the other things I was maybe trying to mention today. There's, I think if you do 2 of the diagonal slashes and a star, you can add notes into a formula field. So I think it's very similar to what you can do with the code side. I'm happy to find the article that to get that and post it to the office hours, but it's definitely possible that commenting works out very well for like a validation rule when you have maybe a lot of n's and ors and things along those lines.
Emily or Steve, do you put comments in formulas? Spot the classically trained person here who keeps going formulae.
Yeah, it's funny. Whenever I'm in something like a hub office hours and I hear that question, I always think, I need to be doing that, because I know it's absolutely, it's such a good best practice, especially, when you're working on a system that someone has worked on in the past, to be able to figure out why that has been there. So it's something I need to do more often. I end up using just the basic description field more usually.
I use it sometimes, but not for notation, which I really should. But one way that you can use it is if you're working on a complex formula and it's not working, like you're either getting a syntax error or it's passing the syntax check, but it's not giving you the expected or desired results. You can actually use it to bypass certain chunks of code without having to remove those lines of code from your formula. You can basically comment out an if statement or a case statement from a larger formula. Now you have to be careful to make sure that your commas and left and right parens are still syntactically correct, but it could be useful for not just notation. You can use it to troubleshoot stuff.
But I think, of course, one of the things you have to be careful about with comments in formulas is you are still limited in the number of characters, aren't you, Steve? And you may not want to lose valuable characters by putting comments in.
There are 2 limits, and most people usually will hit what's called the compile size limit, which is 5K. But there's also a 37 or 3,900 character limit, and they're both hard limits. There's no, as far as I know, there's no calling Salesforce support like with roll-up summary fields and saying, can I get a couple more? I'm at the limit of 5. Can I get a few more? 5K, the 5K limit is 5K on compile size, and it's 3,900 or 3,700 on characters. And they are independent of each other too. Some people will hit the 5K compile size limit, and they'll start doing stuff like removing blank spaces in the formula, that does not have any impact at all on compile size. You need to streamline your function somehow. And if you do hit the 5K compile size limit, breaking that formula out into 2 separate formula fields and then concatenating those 2 formula fields will not work, because the compile size is the sum of all formulas being compiled in that formula. So 3,000 compile size in field 1 and 3,000 compile size in field 2, formula 3 that calls those 2 formulas together is going to compile to 6K, and that's over the limit.
So I think so. That is it's a great idea to put comments in your formulas, but the shorter ones, because otherwise, yes, description might be a good point. Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
And there's a great
quickly,
app
Steve.
out there. There's a great it's called Notepad++. It's a free app. I think it's at notepadplusplus.org, and I write all my formulas in it. It basically is like Windows Notepad, but on steroids, and it is made for writing code, and it has all these great features in it, and one of them is the count of characters in that formula. So if you're approaching that 39K limit, you'll know.
Fabulous.
And it also does a ton of great stuff like indentation, matching your left and right opening and closing parens. It's a fantastic thing. I use it all the time now.
Great. And yeah, somebody else is saying, yes, that you're getting lots of +1s for that, Steve. So that's great. Okay, I'm sure we could all keep talking on this for hours. This has been an incredible session, very helpful. So there's obviously been some real mind-blowing moments for people. Thank you very much indeed for sharing your favorites, everybody. Thank you to the panel for those great demos and really clear explanations. Thank you for the questions and everybody who's attended.